They are thin in another direction, and they have a hole at the top. Now, the other aspect of these stones is their iconography. Somebody has carved some signs into them, as you can see from this one right here. The large cross in the center would be Noah. The medium-sized cross to the right and below would represent Noah's wife. 3 of the crosses up one side, above the arm of the cross, the major cross, would represent Noah's sons. The other 3 crosses up the other side would represent the wives of Noah's sons. There's exactly 8 crosses. There are 8 people in the flood story, and these are engraved upon stones that look very much like anchor type of stones. These are Christian crosses. But they indicate that the people who put those crosses on these stones saw some type of connection between these particular stones and the idea of Noah and the ark and the 8 people that were in the ark, according to the biblical record. Now, these stones are very unusual and irregular in that they are not near any normal natural body of water. It seems evident to me that somebody either wanted to depict something like an anchor stone or actually used an anchor stone in this area. And yet the nearest bodies of water are 75 miles to the southwest and 100 miles to the north. No normal, natural, reasonable explanation for why anchor stones would be used in this particular area.
Ron and Bill agree that much progress has been made on Ron's first foray into the field. Due to the success of the trip and the strength of the discoveries made, Ron feels more strongly than ever that he is on the verge of a major breakthrough. As he reviews his data, the boat-shaped object continues to haunt him, as it has for the past 17 years. Then, unexpectedly, a most surprising and fortuitous event takes place.
My disappointment at having to wait on a permit for a later date was offset by an earthquake that happened in 1978 that did a much better job of excavating the boat than I could have done in maybe a year or 2 years hard work.
Ron is not prepared for the sight he's seeing. The earthquake has dropped the earth from around the sides of the remains, and the formation is now completely exposed. There, at 6,300 feet above sea level, in the mountains of Ararat, lies what appears to be the hull of a massive, ancient, man-made ship. The sides of the object are now clearly exposed, and the outline of the hull of a ship is now evident and clearly visible.
It simply dropped the earth away from the outside of the boat and left the rib timbers and other structures of the boat out there where you could see them. Also, there was a vertical split right down the center of the boat, which enabled me to measure the depth of the boat, plus get good, clean, fresh sample material out of there to have analyzed to tell us more about the chemical composition of the boat.
These 2 photos, post and pre-quake, give one an idea of the extent of nature's timely excavation job. The photo at left was taken in 1960 by the first party to examine the object. The photo at right was taken by Ron in 1979, shortly after the quake. It clearly shows the large quantities of earth which have been displaced from the sides of the object. Again, these 2 photos examine the object both post and pre-quake from yet another angle. In addition to this, the quake has cracked the object down the center, allowing Ron to take fresh samples of material for analysis. He also takes samples from around the object in order to compare the 2 for possible significant differences. Immediately upon Ron's return to the United States, he rushes the samples to Galbraith Labs of Knoxville, Tennessee for breakdown and analysis. The results are electrifying. Not only is there high carbon content as in long decayed ancient wood, there are also traces of metal. Here are the first definite positive signs that the object is not just a natural phenomenon, but indeed may be man-made.
Soil samples have been taken from the formation on 2 different occasions, in 1979 and again in 1984. It's the 1979 samples that first gave the clue that there is a distinct difference in the amount of carbon in the formation as opposed to the field outside of the formation. I have the reports here, and if there was wood in this formation, that kind of a reading with 5% of carbon content would point to it. That's the kind of reading you would expect to get from the decayed wood.
Once we became aware that there were concentrations of metal in this boat formation that were associated with what appeared to be structural remains, the next obvious step was to investigate the site with the use of metal detectors. We set up a expedition with permit to go out with 4 types of metal detection equipment, and with this we carefully surveyed the boat, and we laid out survey tape on top of the ground or on top of the formation to indicate the position of the metal patterns in the boat.
Included in the expedition of Ron and 4 other specialists was Dr. John Baumgartner, a physicist from Los Alamos National Laboratories of Los Alamos, New Mexico. Using 3 types of sophisticated metal detection devices, they began to lay down colored survey ribbons in correlation with the metal detection readings on both the tops and sides of the boat-shaped object. Slowly, a pattern with regular features begins to emerge. The pattern reveals the form of a symmetrical internal subsurface structure of massive proportions.
In August of 1984, this is really the next new step in the study of this formation. You could call the year from August of 84 to August of 85 the year of the metal detector, because he took a metal detector went over the formation, and first of all, he got positive readings from his metal detector. Second, as he studied it more with his metal detector, the readings not only showed some readings, but it showed readings in patterns. Now, during that year, from August of 84 to August of 85, he and several other co-workers went over that formation with 3 different types of metal detectors, as I understand it. And the results with all 3 different types of metal detectors were consistent, and they did indeed give a pattern as they laid out strips, which show you some of the patterns that they got. Now, they also got crosswise patterns and in a lengthwise patterning, and this was first discovered with the metal detector.
Since the negative and positive to these readings have been obtained using 4 different types of metal detectors, since one of these is species-specific in terms of the type of metal detected, since neither of these methods provides any positive readings for the field around the object, and since these positive readings can be correlated with visually observable features of the formation along the portion of one side of it, considerable confidence can be placed in the accuracy of these readings. Thus, the metallic distribution pattern of this formation, whatever it means, seems reasonably straightforward and clear.
Whatever is giving the positive readings on the metal detectors, presumably some type of metal, we're not sure what kind, would have to be patterned in the formation. And the question then is, why is it patterned in the formation? Well, let me just give you a hypothesis, a suggestion. If you had petrified wood in this formation, and the petrification takes place by a process of mineral elements flowing through the wood and depositing in them, then you would expect the trace readings that those minerals would give to follow the pattern of the decayed timbers and the petrification process. And so one possibility would be that this is a reflection of the petrification process of an original form, which would underlay this formation as it now stands.
when we did this metal detector evaluation of the boat formation, we covered the sides of the boat also, the area that had been left bare when the earth fell away during the earthquake, and the rib timber patterns and the keel or keelson patterns were very obvious there along the sides also. Now, another thing we did with these metal detectors, where we spotted high concentrations, say of iron, for example, we were able to collect a sample of 91% pure iron that showed preferential gradients under microscopic examination. And in our language, that meant that this had been hand-worked. It was a right-angle bracket that we...
Although this is an incredible breakthrough, Ron and the team realize that more data is needed before they can draw any conclusions as to whether or not this is a ship. Though exciting and promising, it remains to confirm this pattern with more details and deeply penetrating non-invasive equipment, such as the new subsurface interface radar scanner. Subsurface interface radar is a new high-technology tool which allows examination of objects underground without preliminary digging or excavation. The principle is simple enough. Electromagnetic pulses, or short-wave-length electric energy bursts, are transmitted into the ground. Echoes from these pulses bounce back and are measured by a receiver. The echo time can be translated into readings which are graphically recorded on a continuous roll of paper, such as an electrocardiogram printout. Thus, objects beneath the surface of the ground level may be located and, to some degree, measured. In the summer of 1986, Ron and his team have assembled once again and have received the necessary permits from the Turkish government in order to perform the radar scan. Ron and the crew are poised and ready when once again the unpredictabilities of the region rear their heads and stop Ron and his team short in their tracks.
We got back to America, raised the money, and made the arrangements to get a subsurface interface radar system out to eastern Turkey. We had the appropriate permit at this point in time. Now, we had been informed that we were in some danger of terrorists attacking us or taking us hostage. And in the light of this, the Turkish government provided a group of 30 commandos that accompanied us out to the boat formation each day. And they would go out and hide themselves in the crevices, canyons and whatnot around the boat site. Now, what happened just took a matter of seconds, but to me it seemed like several minutes. Our Turkish commandos just rose up literally from the earth where they had been hiding and decimated these terrorists with automatic gunfire.
Once again, the thunder of death and violence echo off the walls of Doomsday Mountain. The commandos take their work seriously, and these are the results. Out of necessity, the laws of these lands are harsh and strict, and these terrorist guns are silenced forever. Ron makes the Turkish headlines, but not with the news he'd wanted. No one likes being a part of something like this.
This effectively stalled our attempts to do a radar scan on the boat, and of course it was some time after that.
Yet again, Ron has been dealt another blow. Every trip is extremely costly, and this one has been particularly so, due to having the radar technicians and support teams involved. It is crushing, after so many years of working and dreaming, to be so near the end of one's quest, only to be halted again so abruptly. As he has had to do on so many occasions, he calls on almost superhuman patience and tolerance, and once again, he waits.